those of you guys that are checking out my channel for the first time, I moved from Los Angeles to Atlanta in the beginning of 2017, and I have been going from month to month talking about how the Lord has taken care of me and provided for me. He also told me not to ask anyone for money or to look for a job. So if you want to get all caught up, feel free to go back and check out my previous videos. But for today, we're going to pick up from where we left off, and that is going to be in months 13 through 15. So at this point, we're now in 2018, just by the way. But yeah, here we go. So in my last video, I talk about how the Lord told me, and I completely forgot to mention this in my last video, but the Lord told me to ask my mother for a loan. That I did mention. But what I forgot to mention was that when it came time for me to pay her back, that she told me not to worry about it, because I was giving the Lord some pushback, because I'm like, I thought we weren't asking anybody. And yeah, so she pretty much was like, don't worry about it. That was just God's way of letting me know, like, just be obedient and I got you. So yeah, as I was closing out the last video, as far as where we left off, I was working in retail on a sales floor, and I met this amazing woman, and I've been referring to her as Rebecca. Pretty much she was one of my customers, and she had offered me financial assistance, and I had declined because there wasn't anything that I needed. Two of my friends that I had spoken to told me to take her contact information down, and I was kind of wrestling with whether or not I should to email her, basically, and ultimately I did do that. So yeah, so that is where we are picking up at. So all right, here we go. So yes, so I did decide to email her. At this point, it is late January, and I pretty much just emailed her, like, letting her know, like, it was just so great meeting you. And she responded, letting me know that she was actually happy to hear from me, and that she had thought about me a lot. And that she was just sending so many, like, encouraging words. And my friend, as I talked about in the last video, she said, if she offers you any monetary assistance again, then you will know that it's God. And so in that message, she said, if you do need any financial help, please let me know. I'm your friend. And I responded and letting her know, like, I don't need anything at the moment, but I'll definitely let her know if I did. So I had probably about $100 in my account, but I was fine. So I told her that I would definitely let her know. So at this point, about a couple weeks have passed, and we're into like mid-February-ish, a little past mid-February, and I'm starting to sense, like, okay, maybe the Lord is telling me to contact her, because we're approaching the first of the month. And I really sensed it, not only because the first was coming, but I really was like, okay, maybe this is like the ram in the bush kind of situation, and maybe this is the Lord telling me that this is something that he wants me to do. So I tend to be an overthinker, so I'm over here like, Lord, is this you? Is this the vessel that you're choosing to use? Nothing personal against her at all, but I tend to overthink. So ultimately, I did decide to reach out to her, and it was about the 22nd, and she responded to me the next morning. It did not take her long at all, and pretty much letting me know that she was happy that I had reached out to her. She said, how much do you need? What is your address? And letting me know that she wanted to help in any way she could. So I responded, letting her know that I was short about $300, and she said, thank you. The check will be in the mail today. And she just kept saying, like, thank you for contacting me. So yeah, so she sent that over to me, and it got to me a few days before the 1st of March. And I was able to pay my rent. The funny thing is when I had started working in this position, or working in retail, the same company that I was working for when I met her, about a week before, the Lord kept showing me almost like these visions, or I had this like strong knowing that somebody was going to come on the sales floor and help me out financially. But I thought that it was my mind just kind of doing its own thing. And when I had initially met her, when she had originally offered me financial assistance, that wasn't a thought. Like, it had completely like slipped my mind. But it wasn't until weeks after I had met her where the Lord really brought it to my remembrance. Like, that was me letting you know ahead of time. So obviously the Lord just kept coming through, especially if you've been following the story. So my rent was covered for the month of March. So as we got to March, so as we're in March, we kind of, maybe about a few weeks into March, I'm starting to get frustrated again. I'm starting to get antsy, because I have like these expectations, like, okay, something's gonna shake, basically, like something is gonna happen. And I was just frustrated, because I'm like, I'm tired of wondering every month, like, how you're gonna take care of me. I remember being in my apartment, and I don't even know if it was necessarily in this month, but it was, I had to be like, I think a month or two prior. I stood in my living room and I said, God, you sent me out here to die. And I mean, completely convinced. I was so frustrated and I was just so through. I'm like, this is too much. Like, this just doesn't make sense. I'm tired. Like, this is a lot. And the funny thing is at this point, God had me reading through the book of Exodus. So he had me reading chapters 11 through 14. I had not realized that me and my complaining is, and literally, I had not realized that the Israelites said the very same thing. So, all right. So as it reads, Exodus chapter 14, verses 10 and 11. As Pharaoh approached, the people of Israel looked up and panicked when they saw the Egyptians overtaking them. They cried out to the Lord and they said to Moses, "Why did you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Weren't there enough graves for us in Egypt? What have you done to us? Why did you make us leave Egypt?" Yeah, way to pick your face up off the floor. So me and my complaining and me going through what I was going through, the Lord had to remind me, as he had repeatedly been taking care of me already, that I was behaving like them. So at this point, it was late March, because Lord knows I needed this reminder. At this point, it was about late March. I had $200 in my account, and my rent was my rent was $840. What am I saying? And I definitely needed that encouragement yet again, because I didn't know how God was gonna take care of everything this time around. So I remember on the 27th, I just cried. I cried and I was like, I'm just so frustrated. I was really having a hard time, really releasing my grip of really trusting God. I felt like I wanted him to give me more answers than he was willing to give. It wasn't that he wasn't present and it wasn't that he wasn't speaking, but I'm like, I just need to know why. And at that time, I didn't even have the tools or really the understanding to even put together why he was allowing me to go through all that I was going through at that time. Eventually, stuff started to make sense, but he was just asking me to trust him. So, I want to say about a couple days later, I started to feel like this overwhelming amount of peace, to where I was almost I wasn't really worried anymore. I wasn't trying to put the pieces together. I wasn't really stressing. I felt like I was just kind of on this little, cloud. And it was, at this point, it's March 31st, and I was short a little under $450 for my rent that month. And I had been babysitting a little bit here and there, so that's how that total came about. And I wasn't worried. And that day, March 31st, I was on Facebook, and my mom's longtime friend, who's known me my whole life, he's like an uncle to me. I consider him family. He had posted something, and I responded LOL, something just, something quick. And he direct messaged me asking me how I was doing in Atlanta, because I hadn't talked to him in a couple months. And he didn't know all the details of what I was going through during that time at all. So people knew I was in Atlanta, but they didn't really know. Not very many people knew exactly what I was going through. So I just told him, I was like, it's hard right now, but I mean, God is moving. So, but it's definitely difficult. And then okay, so that was the 31st. And then the very next day was April 1st. So that was Easter Sunday. And I remember being at church, and I was speaking to one of my closest friends, and I looked at her, I said, "Girl, it's the first." It was just and she looked at me, she said, "You go through this every month, and every month God takes care of you." And I was like, but I'm not worried. It's just, I'm just interested to see how he's going to do it. And a few hours after that conversation, I opened up my messages, and because we're going to call him Uncle T, the uncle I was direct messaging, I opened up my messages, and he said, "I got up and prayed this morning, and God told me that I need to bless you." And I responded, I said, "Funny you say that, because a sister can't pay her rent," basically. And so he texted me, and he asked me how much I needed. So at this point, it was a little under $450, and he said, "Cool, I'll send you $600. And so I just thanked him, and he was like, "I'm just doing what God told me to do. I feel like the Holy Spirit kept nudging me to help you." And so I was, of course, extremely grateful and really appreciative of that. But that is how my rent was paid for the 1st of April. So at this point, a little into early April, the company that I was working for in retail, they had asked me to come back and to work for them for about another week or two. And I was like, sure, so no problem. So funny thing is as well, one of my coworkers, she was actually going through the same thing pretty much. So her story and my story were very similar. So the Lord had her move from another state. She moved without a job. She moved without a car. I had a car, but our stories were so identical, so we were able to connect with that. She's like the sweetest person. And so I just found that like really interesting. But I was also at this place in my life where I really wasn't worried. Like I really felt like I was just so grateful for what I had. I was so grateful for God just continuing to show up. I wasn't trying to put the pieces together. I wasn't trying to do too much. I was just trying to I'm like, just Lord, just lead me and guide me. And I was fine with that. Like I was completely content. That's the word, content, that I was looking for. So it was about, I want to say like about a month or so later where the Lord started to make clear to me why he moved me to Atlanta. So in my next video, I'm going to talk to you guys about why he moved me to Atlanta finally. But before I do that, I want to leave you guys with a couple takeaways. So for those of you guys that are obviously walking by faith and the Lord is telling you to make an extreme move, or really just to anybody in general, of course, you don't have to create your own grand faith story. Like you just have to do what it is that God is telling you to do. Like there were some people that I had met during that time and it was like they were marching to the beat of their own drum. And you know, sometimes on the outside when God is telling you to do something, it does not make sense. But just certain things that I was seeing, I'm just like, I don't think this Jesus is telling you to do it. But you just got to do what it is that God is telling you to do at the end of the day. There's a reason, like, especially with me looking back, there was a reason why I worked in retail. There was a reason why I was babysitting. There was a reason why I wasn't working when I was working, why I met people that I met. Like, there's a reason for all of it. Like, God is trying to do something and you don't want to go off track based off of your level of understanding, or feeling like you need to prove to yourself or to prove to other people that you got it, or I'm this grand faith warrior. You just got to be obedient and just let God do what it is that he's trying to do in you. Obviously character building, of course. But yeah, you just don't want to end up just kind of walking your own path and trying to perfect in your flesh what the Spirit is trying to do. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to leave you guys with that. But that is it for this video. And yeah, my next video, I'm going to share with you guys why he moved me to Atlanta finally. But until next time, see you later. Bye.